But right now, let's welcome a man uniquely qualified to teach us more about this brave new digital world and the whole blockchain situation, Mr. Terry Brock. Terry Brock has been speaking, writing about, and coaching businesses on emerging technology since 1983. He was the chief enterprise blogger for Skype and the editor of AT&T's Network Exchange blog, and his emphasis on the practical real-world applications of new technologies for both business and individuals. Terry, welcome to the show.
David, it's an honor to be here with you. Let's make some magic today.
Sounds good to me. So let's start with, why is there so much excitement about this blockchain technology? You know, what is it and what causes this excitement?
I think it's because it shows so much potential and we're seeing real-world applications. It gives us the chance to address a lot of serious issues in finance and the kind of things that you do, helping people to plan for retirement and to take care of their financial goals in the right way. The blockchain does it better than we've seen before.
And I think the idea, if I understand correctly, is that it's to do it cheaper, to take out a lot of the financial middlemen, a lot of the financial intermediaries that get involved in a transaction, so that you're actually going direct to the end user and able to purchase goods and services with whoever will accept a Bitcoin or whichever currency we're discussing. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, that's a big factor because we can save a lot of the transactions. Anyone that has dealt with international transfers of money knows, hey, there's huge amounts that the financial institutions will take. And we find that that just is really out of sync with where we are today. Much like email is a way we would send a lot of messages fast, we wouldn't send a fast message via writing it by hand and putting it in the mail. That's what we had to do decades ago. Today, the blockchain offers a lot of possibilities. The number one is money, but there's also other applications as well.
So, you know, it's interesting because people, you know, when you look at what's going on today with the whole blockchain bandwagon, you know, there's a lot of speculation happening today because this could be like MasterCard and Visa was years ago, where somebody came up with this idea that in a while we'd all be spending money with these little plastic cards. I'm sure a lot of Americans, when the idea first came out, thought those people were nuts, and now we hardly carry any cash in our pockets anymore. So it could turn out to be that way. Or it could turn out to be potentially like, you know, the tulip mania, where tulips were used by the Dutch several hundred years ago as currency, and then it quickly went to zero. Is it really just primarily speculative investors today that are using this? And what do you think about its future?
I think the future looks really good, and it's not based on speculation. Speculation is there, and of course we wouldn't recommend anyone put money into blockchain, a Bitcoin, or any of the other alternative coins, the altcoins, unless you can afford to lose that. But we're seeing some solid reasons to do it. It's a much more stable system than having to trust a third party that maybe is okay, maybe is not. We find the blockchain has some serious reasons why it is good, and Bitcoin is the most notable and widely recognized feature of that. But blockchain is a way to keep an unchangeable record that is monitored by lots of people, literally millions around the world, and we know that it's going to be safe as we move forward, that we'll know what happens.
So one benefit is it could save you some money on a transaction because it eliminates middlemen. Another one is it keeps a permanent, unique record. The currency cannot be reused. What other benefits in simple terms exist for individuals that want to use something like Bitcoin as currency?
I think it's because it's based on a fundamental principle that we know will not change, and that is mathematics. You know, we have people in charge of central banks, like here in the United States, Janet Yellen, who I'm going to assume is a nice person and very smart, knows what she's doing, but she and the other governors are not perfect. They make mistakes. They do things wrong, and they're even with the best of trying that they can. With mathematics, which the blockchain is based on, that is immutable, cannot be changed. If you and I engage in a transaction, it cannot go back. We cannot go back later and change it, because if we try, others all around will see, oops, something's wrong here. Something didn't quite work. And all the computers will notice that. So I think we've got some extra trust that's there, and the speed in interactions, and a pseudo-anonymity. It's a little bit more hidden. It's not completely anonymous on something like Bitcoin, but we have a degree of anonymity that is welcome in today's world.
Sure. Now, I know you said it's not speculative per se, and of course, you kind of put a disclaimer on that clause, and I appreciate that. But, you know, to some degree, it is speculative, obviously, because, you know, is this really going to take off? Is this going to continue to be as popular? Is it going to become widely accepted, or is it not? To me, that's where the speculation is. But I believe what you're saying is you think that of various speculative technologies, I think what you're saying is that you believe that this is probably a pretty wise bet if you were a gambling man.
Yeah, I think so. And it's kind of like what you were talking about earlier about the internet. The internet looked a little precarious back in the 90s. We wonder, is it going to be there or not? Well, obviously now we can look back and go, hey, it'd be great, David. Matter of fact, you come on up here to Orlando with me, hop in my time machine. Let's go back then and we'll know where to go. But now today we can just see what's happening, that we've got a lot of opportunities with it. It is going somewhere and we've got some sound financial principles. Why? It's something that we've seen go up. Like, for instance, last year on December 31st, Bitcoin was around 970 some dollars. Today, as we're doing this recording, it's in the 2,700.
I know, it's triple. It's crazy. Terry, stick with us for just a moment. We have to take a commercial break. Stay with us also, our income generation members. When we come back, we'll talk more about Bitcoin, but also different types of financial elements much like that. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Terry, thanks again for sticking around.
Nice to be with you.
You know, when you're talking about Janet Yellen, I thought for a moment you were going to go into the fact that, you know, Bitcoin and these digital currencies seem to say that there's a finite number that's issued and it can't change, whereas the central banks around the world with all the fiat currencies just have the printing presses and they're cranking out all the money. And I thought that's where you were going with that. So tell me, how important is this finite element, if you will, around?
I think it's critical. Yeah, I think it's critical because we've got, the way it was set up with Bitcoin particularly, you've got 21 million Bitcoins that can ever be produced. And they're not all produced right now. They're being produced as people create them. They're called miners after the idea of mining gold, but they're actually calculating a lot of very complex equations. Whereas you flip it over to the central banks and they are trying really hard, but in a way, David, it reminds me of kind of the old Soviet Union. You know, they would get really, really smart people who are really care, and they try to figure out how many pencils do we need for the month of February in Moscow. And eventually they would either produce too many or too few, and the marketplace was stifled. It was really the black market was the free market. Today, we look at what they're doing, and we've got, you know, over $20 trillion as we're recording this now in U.S. debt, let alone Lawrence Kodikoff, one of your guests that you had before, told us it's really over 200. And I think people are looking at that thinking, we need something that's a little more reliable. And so they're looking at mathematics. Mathematics that cannot be changed.
So if there are 21 million coins in Bitcoin, for example, and they're worth 2,700 apiece, the Rain Man in me says that equates to somewhere just shy of $60 billion of total market worth right now for Bitcoin. So I guess my question is, you know, that certainly isn't nearly enough to replace the currencies around the world. The amount of money outstanding today is much greater than that. So do you see these things just being one of the currencies that people use to exchange for goods and services, or do you see it eventually growing to a point where it can actually take over and be the primary currency? Because given these numbers, it doesn't seem like it could do that.
Yeah, you raise a very good case there because we don't even have all 21 million right now. They're scheduled to come later. But what will happen is the price can go up. I think we're going to see a diversity, and so that some people will want euros, some US dollars, renminbi, or whatever, as well as Bitcoin and other digital coins. There's competition there, so that if Bitcoin doesn't do as well or has some problems or doesn't have features that other coins like, say, Dash or BitShares or some others won't have, people will be able to do it in a free market way, which is much more reliable and dependable than some government control. And I think that's what we'll see happen in the long term.
So that brings me to my next topic then. From my understanding, the second player there in terms of popularity is Ethereum. That's come out. And could you speak to our income generation members and frankly to myself in your own words about the differences between Bitcoin and Ethereum, and why has Ethereum's popularity really taken off?
Ethereum is doing very well. It was created by a gentleman, a Russian immigrant to Canada, and he put this together so that it can not only take care of money, but it also has a real strong component with contracts, so that we can then start writing contracts and be able to know what we're going to do, what you say you'll do, what I say we'll do, and it's stored in something that cannot be changed. Ethereum is a good competitor to Bitcoin. It was up as of this recording. Today we saw a significant drop in it, but I think if we live by how is the stock doing today, you know this better than I do, David. If you're living on, oh no, my stock lost 3 points today, oh, tomorrow it'll be up a couple, we're going to be in trouble. Long-term, Ethereum has some real stickability, and I see Ethereum addressing a lot of the issues that Bitcoin does, but also I think it'll have some additional features, particularly in the contracts area.
Yeah, it seems like most of the major financial institutions and Wall Street firms seem to be backing Ethereum, almost to a point where it makes me wonder if they were somehow behind the initiation of it. Were they behind the creation of it at all, or is it just that because it's contractual feature, they feel like it's a better alternative than Bitcoin, for example?
I don't know all the privy things that went into it behind those that created Ethereum and Wall Street firms, but I do think that they're looking at it. They want something that's going to be reliable. And when we can find something that is trustworthy based on, again, mathematics, then we know that it's something that we ought to look into and be aware of.
Now, is there room for more than one? I mean, let's say that, obviously, if this whole blockchain technology really doesn't take off when it comes to virtual currency at all, then all these companies are basically going to eventually disappear. But assuming that your crystal ball is right and it comes through, is it that one's going to float to the top, or do you see that there's room for 4 or 5 of these, just like we have MasterCard, we have Visa, we have Discover, we have American Express? What are your thoughts?
Well, I wish my crystal ball were working a little better. I think the batteries are out on it today. But I can tell you what I think could happen and what possibly will. I think we're going to see competing currencies. Bitcoin is the dominant force right now as we're recording this. Ethereum closing in a little bit. But I also see advantages and disadvantages in a free market way with others. So there might be the Terry coin. There might be the David coin. And we could all have our own coins that do certain features and certain activities. Right now, we've got probably over 1,000, and there'll probably be even more coins that are out there, each of which addresses different areas of the market. And I'm a big believer in the free market. Let it run rather than trying to trust really, really smart people who really, really, really care, like the Soviet 5-year plan, and let the free market, with its trillions of decisions that are made every day, decide what's going to happen, give us vehicles and tools like the altcoins as well as Bitcoin.
Of course, of course. In the last 15 or 20 seconds or so, we're not going to hold you to it, but I'd like you to go beyond just this blockchain technology. I know it's one of the things you think is maybe the big next thing, but what else? What outside this technology right now would you recommend that people look into if they've got a little bit of money with which they're willing to speculate?
Can I see your 20 seconds and raise it to 20 years? I got a lot, but I look at things like drones. They are doing incredible things, particularly outside the U.S. The FAA is curtailing a lot that's going on in the U.S. I see 3D printing. I mean, we've got 3D printers up on the space station. It's a much better way to manufacture in many cases. I also see a lot of other technologies that are emerging right now that are enormous. So I'm very optimistic on technology and where we're going.
The drones are really interesting, see? So you not only look like Jeff Bezos a little bit to me, but you sound like Jeff Bezos with the drones. Terry, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Dave, very much.